Question 1. Analysis of a situation at BJ's Wholesale Club where a member's adult child approaches a cashier, stating they need to access their parent's account information to make a purchase on their behalf, as the parent is unavailable. The cashier is unsure of the policy regarding sharing member account details with individuals other than the primary member. What is the most appropriate course of action for the cashier to take to uphold customer privacy and company policy? Option A. Provide the requested account information to the adult child, assuming they are acting with their parent's consent. Option B. Politely explain that account information cannot be shared with anyone other than the primary member without explicit authorization, and offer to assist the child in a way that respects the primary member's privacy, such as suggesting the primary member contact BJ's directly or providing general information. Option C. Access the account information to see if it is possible to make the purchase for the child, as they appear to be a family member. Option D. Immediately refuse the request and tell the child they cannot help them, without any further explanation or offer of assistance. The correct answer is B. Politely explain that account information cannot be shared with anyone other than the primary member without explicit authorization, and offer to assist the child in a way that respects the primary member's privacy, such as suggesting the primary member contact BJ's directly or providing general information. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in retail environments where employees may encounter situations requiring them to handle sensitive customer information or make decisions that impact customer experience. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient customer service with the imperative to protect customer privacy and adhere to company policies, which are often informed by regulatory frameworks. Careful judgment is required to ensure that actions taken are both legally compliant and ethically sound, fostering trust with customers and maintaining the reputation of BJ's Wholesale Club. The correct approach involves prioritizing customer privacy and adhering strictly to BJ's Wholesale Club's established policies regarding the handling of personal information. This means that without explicit authorization or a clear business need directly related to the member's transaction, an employee should not access or disclose a member's account details. This approach is justified by general principles of data privacy and consumer protection, which are foundational to responsible business practices. While specific U.S. federal regulations like HIPAA or GLBA might not directly apply to a retail membership context, the underlying principles of safeguarding personal information are universally recognized and often mirrored in state-level privacy laws and industry best practices. BJ's Wholesale Club, as a business operating in the U.S., is expected to uphold these standards to prevent unauthorized access and potential misuse of member data, thereby maintaining customer trust and avoiding reputational damage or potential legal challenges related to privacy breaches. An incorrect approach would be to readily provide the requested information to a family member without verifying their identity or authorization. This failure stems from a disregard for privacy protocols. Even if the individual appears to be a legitimate family member, the absence of a formal authorization process or a clear policy allowing such disclosures creates a significant risk of violating privacy expectations and potentially enabling unauthorized access to sensitive account information. This could lead to a breach of trust, and in some jurisdictions, could have legal ramifications if personal information is mishandled. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the request outright without offering any alternative or explanation. While maintaining privacy is crucial, a complete refusal without attempting to find a compliant solution can lead to customer dissatisfaction and a negative perception of BJ's Wholesale Club's customer service. A more professional response would involve politely explaining the policy regarding information access and offering to assist the family member in a way that respects the primary member's privacy, such as suggesting the primary member contact BJ's directly or providing a general information pamphlet. A third incorrect approach would be to access the account information, see if it's okay, before deciding. This action itself constitutes an unauthorized access of personal data, regardless of the outcome of the review. The act of accessing the information without a legitimate business purpose or explicit authorization is a violation of privacy principles and company policy, creating a risk of data exposure and undermining the trust placed in BJ's Wholesale Club to protect member information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of company policies regarding data privacy and customer information. When faced with a request that could potentially compromise privacy, an employee should first consult the relevant policy. If the policy is unclear or the situation is ambiguous, the employee should err on the side of caution and seek guidance from a supervisor or the appropriate department. The primary goal should always be to protect customer data while striving to provide excellent customer service within the bounds of established guidelines. Question 2. The efficiency study reveals that a member at BJ's Wholesale Club is inquiring about a specific brand of organic pasta that is currently out of stock. The member expresses disappointment and asks if there are any similar alternatives available. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BJ's team member? Option A. Inform the member that the specific pasta is out of stock and suggest they check back later. Option B. State that there are no other organic pasta options available without verifying. Option C. Acknowledge the unavailability of the specific pasta, offer to check for similar organic pasta brands or types that are in stock, and assist the member in locating them. Option D. Advise the member to visit a competitor's store that might carry the specific brand. Correct answer is A. Inform the member that the specific pasta is out of stock and suggest they check back later. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a BJ's Wholesale Club employee tasked with responding to a customer's inquiry about a product's availability and potential alternatives. The challenge lies in balancing the need to provide accurate and helpful information with the company's policies and the customer's expectation, all while operating within the scope of their role. Misinformation or misrepresentation can lead to customer dissatisfaction, potential loss of sales, and damage to BJ's reputation. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing demands effectively. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves acknowledging the current unavailability of the specific product, offering to check for similar items that meet the customer's needs, and then proactively assisting the customer in locating those alternatives within the store or online. This demonstrates excellent customer service by being transparent about the product's status, showing initiative in finding solutions, and guiding the customer towards a satisfactory outcome. This aligns with general retail best practices and BJ's commitment to member satisfaction, ensuring a positive shopping experience. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves stating the product is out of stock without offering any further assistance or alternatives, fails to meet customer service expectations, and misses an opportunity to retain a sale. It is unhelpful and can lead to frustration. An approach that involves guessing at product availability or suggesting an alternative without verifying its suitability or current stock status is unprofessional and can lead to further disappointment for the customer if the information is incorrect. This can erode trust in BJ's. An approach that involves directing the customer to a competitor without attempting to find a solution within BJ's offerings is detrimental to the company's sales and customer retention efforts. While sometimes necessary, it should not be the first resort. Professional reasoning. Professionals in a retail environment like BJ's Wholesale Club should adopt a problem-solving mindset when interacting with customers. The decision-making process should prioritize understanding the customer's needs, providing accurate information, and actively seeking solutions that benefit both the customer and the company. This involves clear communication, resourcefulness in checking inventory and product information, and a willingness to go the extra mile to ensure customer satisfaction. Question 3. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a BJ's Wholesale Club member is requesting a refund for a perishable item purchased 2 weeks ago, which is beyond the typical 30-day return window and outside the standard policy for perishable goods. The member claims the item was not consumed due to an unexpected personal circumstance. How should a BJ's Wholesale Club associate handle this situation? Option A. Inform the member that the request cannot be accommodated due to the expired return period and the nature of the product, and end the interaction. Option B. Promise the member a full refund and escalate the issue to a supervisor, assuming the supervisor will approve the exception without verifying policy or circumstances. Option C. Politely explain the BJ's Wholesale Club return policy regarding perishable items and the standard return timeframe, and offer to explore any available alternative solutions within the policy, such as a potential store credit if applicable for specific situations, or suggest speaking with a manager for further review. Option D. Immediately process the refund for the member to ensure customer satisfaction, as the member is a long-standing BJ's Wholesale Club member. The correct answer is C. Politely explain the BJ's Wholesale Club return policy regarding perishable items and the standard return timeframe, and offer to explore any available alternative solutions within the policy, such as a potential store credit if applicable for specific situations, or suggest speaking with a manager for further review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing customer service with adherence to BJ's Wholesale Club's internal policies and potentially relevant consumer protection guidelines. The core issue is how to respond to a customer's request that falls outside standard procedures without alienating the customer or creating a precedent that could lead to future operational difficulties or policy breaches. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any resolution is fair, consistent, and compliant. The correct approach involves acknowledging the customer's feedback, explaining the current policy clearly and politely, and offering alternative solutions within the established framework. This upholds BJ's Wholesale Club's operational integrity and ensures consistent application of policies for all members. It also demonstrates a commitment to customer service by seeking to find a mutually agreeable resolution. This aligns with general principles of good business practice and customer relationship management, which are implicitly expected in any hiring assessment for a customer-facing role. While specific U.S. regulations for retail return policies can vary by state, the overarching principle is transparency and fair dealing with consumers. An incorrect approach that immediately grants the exception without considering policy implications risks undermining the established procedures and could lead to inconsistent treatment of members. This could create a perception of unfairness among other members who adhere to the stated policies. Another incorrect approach that dismisses the customer's concern without offering any alternatives or explanation, fails to demonstrate adequate customer service and could lead to negative reviews or loss of membership. Finally, an approach that overpromises a solution that cannot be delivered due to policy constraints would be unethical and damage trust. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the customer's request and the underlying reason for it. Then, they should consult relevant company policies and guidelines. If the request falls outside policy, they should clearly communicate the policy to the customer, explain the reasoning behind it if appropriate, and explore any permissible alternatives or exceptions that can be offered. Escalation to a supervisor or manager should be considered if the situation is complex or requires a decision beyond the associate's authority. The goal is to resolve the issue in a manner that is both customer-centric and compliant with company standards. Question 4. Research into BJ's Wholesale Club's internal policies and relevant U.S. state privacy regulations reveals a customer is requesting access to their purchase history and membership details over the phone. The customer provides their membership number and the name associated with the account, but is unable to provide a date of birth or the last 4 digits of the credit card on file, which are standard verification requirements. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BJ's Wholesale Club associate? Option A. Access the account information and provide it to the customer, but make a note on the account that verification was incomplete. Option B. Provide the customer with their purchase history and membership details as they have provided the membership number and name, assuming they are the legitimate account holder. Option C. Lightly explain that due to privacy and security protocols, full verification is required to access account details, and offer to guide the customer through alternative secure methods to verify their identity or access their information, such as visiting a club location with a valid ID or using the secure online portal. Option D. Inform the customer that without complete verification, no information can be provided and end the call. The correct answer is C. Politely explain that due to privacy and security protocols, full verification is required to access account details, and offer to guide the customer through alternative secure methods to verify their identity or access their information, such as visiting a club location with a valid ID or using the secure online portal. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a BJ's Wholesale Club employee regarding the handling of customer information, specifically in the context of potential data breaches and privacy regulations. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to assist a customer with a legitimate inquiry against the imperative to protect sensitive personal data from unauthorized access or disclosure. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance with privacy laws and company policy while maintaining good customer service. The correct approach involves a structured process of verification and authorized access. This means that before any personal account information can be shared or acted upon, the employee must confirm the identity of the individual making the request through established, secure methods. This aligns with the principles of data privacy and security mandated by regulations such as the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. If BJ's operates within California or similar state-level privacy laws, these regulations typically require businesses to implement reasonable security measures to protect personal information and to verify the identity of individuals requesting access to their data. The ethical imperative is to prevent identity theft and misuse of personal information, which is a fundamental aspect of responsible business practice. An incorrect approach would be to provide account information based solely on the customer's verbal assurance or easily obtainable details like a membership number. This fails to meet the reasonable security measures standard required by privacy laws. It creates a significant risk of unauthorized access, potentially leading to identity theft, financial fraud, and reputational damage for BJ's Wholesale Club. Another incorrect approach would be to refuse to assist the customer entirely without offering alternative, secure methods of verification. This, while prioritizing security, fails to meet customer service expectations and could violate principles of fair dealing and accessibility if not handled with appropriate alternative solutions. A third incorrect approach might involve attempting to access the information through unofficial or unauthorized channels, which is a direct violation of company policy and potentially illegal, exposing both the employee and the company to severe penalties. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of company policies regarding data privacy and customer verification. Employees should be trained to recognize the types of information that are considered sensitive and the protocols for handling such data. When faced with a request, the first step is to assess the nature of the information requested and the potential risks involved. If verification is required, the employee should follow the established, secure procedures. If the customer cannot or will not comply with these procedures, the employee should politely explain the necessity of the verification process and offer alternative, authorized methods for the customer to access their information or resolve their issue, such as directing them to a dedicated customer service line or a secure online portal. Question 5. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood and high impact for a potential disruption in the self-checkout system at BJ's Wholesale Club due to an upcoming software update. The IT department has flagged this as a critical risk. Considering the potential for significant member frustration and operational delays, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the store management team? Option A. Temporarily disable all self-checkout lanes until the IT department can guarantee a flawless software update, even if it means longer lines at traditional registers. Option B. Implement a temporary manual workaround for processing transactions at self-checkout lanes, while the IT department works on a stable, permanent solution for the software update. Option C. Post a notice at the self-checkout area informing members of a potential risk of disruption and advising them to use traditional checkout lanes if they prefer. Option D. Proceed with the software update as scheduled, assuming members will adapt to any minor disruptions and address issues as they arise. Correct answer is B. Implement a temporary manual workaround for processing transactions at self-checkout lanes, while the IT department works on a stable, permanent solution for the software update. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual at BJ's Wholesale Club to interpret a risk matrix and apply it to a real-world operational decision. The challenge lies in moving beyond a purely theoretical understanding of risk assessment to practical application, considering potential impacts on member experience, operational efficiency, and compliance with internal policies and potentially external regulations, though this question focuses on internal policy and ethical judgment. Careful judgment is required to balance the identified risks with the potential benefits or necessity of the proposed action. The correct approach involves prioritizing member experience and operational integrity by implementing a temporary workaround while a permanent solution is sought. This is the best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to member satisfaction, a core value for a membership-based retailer like BJ's Wholesale Club. It also acknowledges the risk identified in the matrix and takes proactive steps to mitigate immediate negative consequences. This approach aligns with ethical principles of responsible business conduct and customer service, ensuring that members are not unduly inconvenienced by a system issue. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate cost savings of not addressing the issue fails to consider the long-term damage to member loyalty and the potential for increased operational errors or member complaints. This approach is ethically questionable as it prioritizes short-term financial gain over member value and operational stability. Another incorrect approach that involves a hasty, unvetted permanent fix, despite the identified risk of disruption, is professionally unsound. It ignores the risk assessment and could lead to more significant problems, potentially violating internal IT or operational standards and negatively impacting member experience. A third incorrect approach that involves ignoring the risk matrix entirely and proceeding without any mitigation strategy is a direct abdication of professional responsibility. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of risk management principles and a disregard for potential negative outcomes, which could lead to significant operational disruptions and member dissatisfaction. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the identified risks and their potential impact. This involves evaluating the severity and likelihood of the risk as presented in the matrix. Next, they should consider the operational and member-facing implications of different courses of action. The framework should then guide the selection of the option that best balances risk mitigation, operational continuity, and member satisfaction, while adhering to company policies and ethical standards. This often involves seeking input from relevant departments and documenting the decision-making process. Question 6. Comparative studies suggest that effective customer service at retail establishments like BJ's Wholesale Club requires a delicate balance between addressing member concerns and upholding company policies. Imagine a scenario where a BJ's member claims they were overcharged for a specific item during a recent visit, providing a vague recollection of the price. The member is insistent on an immediate refund, but the transaction details are not readily available through the standard point-of-sale system without further investigation. Which of the following approaches best demonstrates professional conduct and adherence to typical retail operational guidelines for BJ's Wholesale Club? Option A. Politely inform the member that, without verifiable proof of an overcharge from the transaction records, the refund cannot be processed, and advise them to check their receipt if they have it. Option B. Escalate the situation to a supervisor or manager, explaining the member's claim and the difficulty in immediate verification, and request guidance on the appropriate next steps according to BJ's policy. Option C. Immediately issue a refund for the disputed amount to ensure customer satisfaction, regardless of the ability to verify the overcharge through internal records. Option D. Suggest the member return the item for a full refund, even if the claim is about an overcharge rather than a defective product, to resolve the complaint quickly. The correct answer is C. Immediately issue a refund for the disputed amount to ensure customer satisfaction, regardless of the ability to verify the overcharge through internal records. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a BJ's Wholesale Club employee regarding the handling of customer complaints and potential policy violations. Core difficulty lies in balancing the need to address customer concerns promptly and fairly with the requirement to adhere strictly to BJ's internal policies and procedures, particularly concerning potential fraud or misuse of membership benefits. Careful judgment is required to avoid both alienating a member and compromising the integrity of BJ's operational guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough, policy-driven investigation of the customer's claim. This means gathering all necessary information, reviewing relevant membership terms and conditions, and consulting with a supervisor or designated department to ensure a consistent and compliant resolution. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to BJ's established policies, which are designed to protect the company and its members. By following established protocols, the employee ensures that the resolution is fair, consistent, and legally defensible, upholding the company's commitment to its membership agreement. This aligns with the ethical responsibility to act with integrity and uphold contractual obligations, An incorrect approach would be to immediately grant a refund or special accommodation without proper verification. This fails to uphold BJ's membership policies, potentially setting a precedent for future misuse and exposing the company to financial loss. It also bypasses the established procedures for handling such claims, which are in place to ensure fairness and prevent fraud. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer's complaint outright without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of customer service, could lead to negative publicity, and fails to address potential policy breaches that might require internal action. Finally, an approach that involves making assumptions about the customer's intent without gathering facts is also professionally unsound, as it can lead to unfair outcomes and damage the customer relationship. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the core issue, identifying relevant company policies and procedures, and then gathering all necessary facts. If the situation is complex or outside the employee's direct authority, escalation to a supervisor or relevant department is crucial. The decision should always be grounded in policy, fairness, and the best interests of both the customer and the company, ensuring that actions are transparent, consistent, and justifiable. Question 7. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood and high impact for scenarios involving the unauthorized access or disclosure of member payment information. BJ's Wholesale Club is considering a new promotional campaign that would involve sharing anonymized member purchase data with a third-party marketing analytics firm. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and ethical considerations for handling this sensitive member data? Option A. Proceed with sharing the anonymized data, as the risk matrix indicates a high-risk scenario, necessitating robust data anonymization techniques and a thorough review of the third-party vendor's data security protocols before data transfer. Option B. Proceed with sharing the data, but implement only basic security measures, as the data is anonymized and therefore poses minimal risk. Option C. Proceed with sharing the data, as the risk matrix is a general guideline and the potential for increased sales outweighs the theoretical risk of a breach. Option D. Delay the campaign indefinitely due to the high-risk rating on the matrix, without exploring potential mitigation strategies. The correct answer is A. Proceed with sharing the anonymized data, as the risk matrix indicates a high-risk scenario, necessitating robust data anonymization techniques and a thorough review of the third-party vendor's data security protocols before data transfer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual at BJ's Wholesale Club to interpret a risk matrix and apply it to a real-world situation involving potential data privacy concerns. The challenge lies in moving beyond a purely theoretical understanding of risk assessment to practical application, ensuring compliance with relevant regulations and ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to balance business needs with the protection of member information. The correct approach involves identifying the specific type of data being handled, assessing the likelihood and impact of a data breach based on the risk matrix, and then implementing controls commensurate with the identified risk level. This aligns with the principles of data protection and privacy regulations, which mandate a risk-based approach to data security. For BJ's Wholesale Club, this would mean adhering to U.S. federal and state data privacy laws, such as the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, if applicable, and general best practices for handling sensitive customer information. The regulatory justification is rooted in the obligation to protect personally identifiable information, PI, and prevent unauthorized access or disclosure. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the potential financial benefit without adequately considering the risk of a data breach would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement to implement reasonable security measures to protect PII. Another incorrect approach that proposes implementing minimal controls despite a high-risk rating on the matrix ignores the fundamental principle of proportionality in risk management. This could lead to significant regulatory penalties and reputational damage. Third incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough risk assessment and control validation would also be flawed, as it bypasses the necessary due diligence to ensure effective data protection. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific context and the data involved. They should then consult the risk matrix to understand the potential severity and likelihood of various risks. based on this assessment. They must identify and implement appropriate controls that are both effective and compliant with all applicable regulations and ethical guidelines. This process should involve a continuous cycle of assessment, implementation, and review to ensure ongoing data protection. Question 8. Regulatory review indicates that BJ's Wholesale Club has established policies regarding the protection of member data. A member approaches a BJ's employee at the customer service desk and requests to know the purchase history of another member, claiming they are a close friend and need the information for a surprise gift. The employee has access to the system that could potentially retrieve this information. Option A. Access the system and provide a generalized overview of popular items purchased by members without revealing specific individual purchase data. Option B. Access the system and provide the requested purchase history to the member, assuming the stated relationship is genuine and the information is needed for a positive purpose. Option C. Inform the member that you cannot provide the information and suggest they ask the other member directly for their purchase history. Option D. Politely explain that due to BJ's Wholesale Club's commitment to member privacy and data protection regulations, the purchase history of one member cannot be shared with another, even with a stated relationship, and offer to assist the member in finding a gift within their own budget or by browsing available items. The correct answer is D. Politely explain that due to BJ's Wholesale Club's commitment to member privacy and data protection regulations, the purchase history of one member cannot be shared with another, even with a stated relationship, and offer to assist the member in finding a gift within their own budget or by browsing available items. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a BJ's Wholesale Club employee because it requires them to navigate a situation where a customer's request potentially conflicts with company policy, and by extension, regulatory compliance related to data privacy and security. The employee must balance providing good customer service with upholding these critical obligations. Careful judgment is required to avoid both alienating a member and violating privacy standards. The correct approach involves politely but firmly explaining that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot fulfill the request due to privacy policies and data protection regulations. This upholds the company's commitment to safeguarding member information, which is a fundamental ethical and legal responsibility. By adhering to established procedures, the employee prevents potential data breaches, avoids legal repercussions for BJ's, and maintains member trust. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling, a key aspect of operational integrity. An incorrect approach would be to fulfill the request without verification or regard for policy. This failure to adhere to privacy protocols exposes BJ's Wholesale Club to significant risks, including potential fines for violating data protection laws and severe damage to its reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the member rudely or without explanation. While this might avoid a direct policy violation in the moment, it creates a negative customer experience and fails to educate the member on the importance of data privacy, potentially leading to future misunderstandings or attempts to circumvent policies. A third incorrect approach would be to guess or fabricate information to satisfy the member. This is a direct violation of data integrity and honesty and could lead to incorrect actions being taken based on false information, with serious consequences. Professionals in similar situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes policy adherence and ethical conduct. This involves 1. Understanding the request and its implications. 2. Consulting company policy and relevant regulations. 3. Communicating clearly and respectfully with the individual making the request, explaining the limitations. 4. Offering alternative, compliant solutions if available. 5. Escalating the issue to a supervisor if uncertainty remains or if the situation warrants it. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business objectives and legal/ethical standards. Question 9. Consider a scenario where a BJ's Wholesale Club member approaches the customer service desk and asks for the contact information of another member who frequently shops at the same store location, stating they wish to coordinate a shared purchase. The BJ's team member is aware that BJ's Wholesale Club has a strict policy against sharing member personal information. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BJ's team member? Option A. Provide the contact information of the other member, explaining that it is a one-time courtesy to facilitate a shared purchase. Option B. Politely inform the member that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot share personal information of other members due to privacy policies and offer to assist them with their own shopping needs. Option C. Suggest the member leave a note at the customer service desk for the other member to find if they happen to visit the store. Option D. Ask the requesting member for their own membership card and then look up the other member's information to see if it can be shared. The correct answer is B. Politely inform the member that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot share personal information of other members due to privacy policies and offer to assist them with their own shopping needs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate a situation where a customer's request potentially conflicts with company policy and data privacy regulations. The core of the challenge lies in balancing customer service with the obligation to protect sensitive information. Careful judgment is required to ensure that customer satisfaction is pursued without compromising legal or ethical standards. The correct approach involves politely declining the request while explaining the company's policy regarding the protection of member information. This upholds the principle of data privacy, which is a critical regulatory and ethical consideration for any business handling personal data. BJ's Wholesale Club, like any retailer, has a responsibility to safeguard its members' information, and this is often codified in privacy policies and potentially by broader data protection laws. By adhering to policy and explaining the rationale, the employee demonstrates professionalism and a commitment to responsible data handling. An incorrect approach would be to fulfill the request without proper authorization or verification. This could lead to a breach of member privacy, violating BJ's internal policies and potentially applicable data protection laws. Such a failure could result in disciplinary action for the employee, damage to BJ's reputation, and potential legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer rudely or without any explanation. While this might avoid a privacy breach, it demonstrates poor customer service and fails to educate the customer about legitimate business practices, potentially leading to dissatisfaction and negative word of mouth. A third incorrect approach would be to guess or fabricate information to satisfy the customer. This is unethical and could lead to providing incorrect information, causing further problems for the member and BJ's. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the company's policies and relevant regulations. When faced with a customer request that might be problematic, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the core of the request and any potential conflicts with policy or regulations. 2. Consulting internal policies or a supervisor if unsure. 3. Communicating clearly and politely with the customer, explaining any limitations or reasons for refusal based on policy or privacy concerns. 4. Offering alternative solutions within policy guidelines if possible. Question 10. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of customer data privacy breaches due to improper handling of sensitive information by frontline associates at BJ's Wholesale Club. A member approaches the customer service desk at BJ's Wholesale Club requesting to update their personal contact information on their account, stating they are in a hurry. The associate is unsure of the exact protocol for verifying the member's identity and updating their details securely. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to regulatory compliance and responsible data handling practices for a BJ's Wholesale Club associate in this situation? Option A. Proceed with updating the member's information based on their verbal request to expedite service, assuming they are the account holder. Option B. Politely inform the member that you cannot assist with account changes and advise them to visit the membership desk or call the main customer service line for assistance with account updates. Option C. Ask the member for their membership number and a few pieces of personal information they recall from their account to verify their identity before proceeding with the update. Option D. Escalate the request to a supervisor or the designated membership services team, explaining the situation and requesting guidance on the correct, secure procedure for updating member information. The correct answer is A. Proceed with updating the member's information based on their verbal request to expedite service, assuming they are the account holder. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to balance operational efficiency with strict adherence to regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data privacy and customer information handling. The pressure to quickly resolve a customer issue must not override the legal and ethical obligations to protect sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to identify the most appropriate and compliant course of action. The correct approach involves escalating the issue to the appropriate department or supervisor, who is trained and authorized to handle such requests in a compliant manner. This upholds the principle of least privilege and ensures that customer data is accessed and managed only by individuals with a legitimate business need and the necessary training. This aligns with the spirit and letter of data privacy regulations, which mandate that personal information be protected from unauthorized access and disclosure. By following established protocols, the employee demonstrates a commitment to both customer service and regulatory integrity. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing or sharing customer information without proper authorization or verification fails to respect data privacy principles. This could lead to a breach of customer trust and potential legal repercussions for BJ's Wholesale Club. Another incorrect approach, such as dismissing the customer's request without proper investigation or escalation, demonstrates poor customer service and a disregard for potential compliance issues, even if the intent is not malicious. A third incorrect approach, attempting to resolve the issue using personal knowledge or assumptions without consulting official procedures, risks misinterpreting regulations or company policy, leading to unintended compliance failures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes compliance and ethical conduct. This involves understanding company policies and relevant regulations, recognizing when a situation falls outside their scope of authority or expertise, and knowing the proper channels for escalation. When faced with a customer request that involves sensitive information, the immediate thought process should be, is this within my authorized capabilities and compliant with data privacy guidelines? If there is any doubt, the default action should be to seek guidance from a supervisor or the designated compliance department. Question 11. The investigation demonstrates that a BJ's Wholesale Club associate discovered an unusual email containing what appears to be a list of customer credit card numbers. The associate is concerned about a potential data breach. Which of the following actions should the associate take immediately? Option A. Contact a local news reporter to share the information about the potential breach. Option B. Post a screenshot of the suspicious email on their personal social media to warn others. Option C. Report the suspected breach internally to the BJ's Wholesale Club Information Security Department. Option D. Discuss the suspicious email with coworkers during their lunch break. The correct answer is C. Report the suspected breach internally to the BJ's Wholesale Club Information Security Department. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge for BJ's Wholesale Club employees regarding the proper handling of customer data, specifically in the context of a potential data breach. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for prompt internal reporting with the legal and ethical obligations to protect customer privacy and comply with data breach notification laws. Employees must exercise careful judgment to avoid premature or inaccurate disclosures that could exacerbate the situation or violate regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately reporting the suspected data breach internally to the designated security or compliance team at BJ's Wholesale Club. This is the right professional practice because it initiates the company's established incident response plan. This plan is designed to comply with relevant data breach notification laws, which typically require specific procedures, timelines, and content for notifying affected individuals and regulatory bodies. By reporting internally first, employees ensure that the company can conduct a thorough investigation, assess the scope of the breach, and make informed decisions about external notifications, thereby minimizing harm to customers and adhering to legal requirements. Incorrect approaches analysis. Reporting the suspected breach to a personal social media account is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates data privacy principles by publicly disclosing sensitive information about a potential breach before it has been properly assessed and managed by the company. This action could lead to panic among customers, compromise the integrity of the investigation, and result in severe penalties for BJ's Wholesale Club under data protection laws for failing to maintain confidentiality and control over breach information. Contacting a news outlet directly without company authorization is another critical failure. This bypasses the company's established communication protocols and legal counsel, potentially leading to the dissemination of incomplete or inaccurate information. Such an action could violate breach notification laws by failing to provide legally mandated details or by making premature public statements. It also undermines the company's ability to manage its reputation and legal obligations effectively. Discussing the suspected breach with colleagues in non-work-related settings or casual conversations is also professionally unacceptable. This constitutes an unauthorized disclosure of sensitive company information and a potential breach of customer privacy. It can lead to rumors, misinformation, and a lack of control over the narrative, hindering the company's ability to respond appropriately and legally to the incident. Professional reasoning. Professionals at BJ's Wholesale Club should follow a clear decision-making framework when encountering a suspected data breach. This framework prioritizes internal reporting to the designated security or compliance department. This ensures that the incident is handled according to the company's incident response plan, which is built to align with legal and regulatory requirements. Employees should be trained to recognize potential breaches and understand the critical importance of confidentiality and the established reporting channels. Any deviation from this protocol risks legal repercussions, reputational damage, and harm to customers. Question 12. The analysis reveals that a BJ's Wholesale Club associate has received a request from a third-party vendor for a list of members who have purchased specific product categories in the last 6 months, citing a potential marketing partnership opportunity. The associate is unsure if this request can be fulfilled under BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies and applicable U.S. privacy laws. Option A. Proceed with fulfilling the request based on a verbal agreement with the vendor that the information will be used solely for marketing purposes. Option B. Share the requested list of members and their purchase history with the vendor, but only after removing direct personal identifiers like names and addresses. Option C. Provide the requested list of members and their purchase history to the third-party vendor, assuming the marketing partnership could benefit BJ's Wholesale Club. Option D. Inform the third-party vendor that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot fulfill the request without further review and escalate the request to the BJ's Wholesale Club compliance officer for guidance. The correct answer is C. Provide the requested list of members and their purchase history to the third-party vendor, assuming the marketing partnership could benefit BJ's Wholesale Club. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to navigate potential conflicts between company policy and regulatory requirements, specifically concerning data privacy and customer information. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for both legal repercussions for BJ's Wholesale Club and ethical breaches if customer data is mishandled. The correct approach involves prioritizing adherence to BJ's Wholesale Club's established data privacy policies and relevant U.S. federal and state regulations. This approach is professionally sound because it demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and customer trust. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and security mandated by regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, and the general principles of data protection under federal law. By seeking guidance from the designated compliance officer, the employee ensures that any action taken is reviewed against both internal procedures and external legal obligations, thereby mitigating risk. An incorrect approach that involves sharing customer information without explicit authorization or a clear business need, even if seemingly helpful, fails to uphold data privacy standards. This could violate the CCPA provisions regarding the sale or sharing of personal information and breach the trust BJ's Wholesale Club has with its members. Another incorrect approach, such as disregarding company policy in favor of a perceived shortcut, ignores the internal controls designed to ensure compliance and protect the company. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and could lead to inconsistent application of privacy practices. A third incorrect approach, which involves making assumptions about what information can be shared, bypasses the critical step of verification and authorization, increasing the likelihood of a privacy violation. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core issue, handling customer data. They should then consult relevant internal policies and external regulations. If there is any ambiguity or potential conflict, The next step is to escalate the matter to the appropriate internal authority, such as a compliance officer or legal department, for clarification and guidance before proceeding. This ensures that actions are both compliant and ethically sound. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that a BJ's Wholesale Club member is requesting detailed purchase history information for a family member who is currently unable to access their account. The employee is unsure if providing this information directly to the requesting member is permissible under BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies and relevant consumer protection laws. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BJ's Wholesale Club employee? Option A. Fulfill the request by providing the purchase history, assuming the requesting member is acting in good faith to assist their family member. Option B. Attempt to verify the relationship between the requesting member and the account holder through informal questioning, and then provide the information if the relationship seems credible. Option C. Politely explain to the requesting member that due to BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies and legal obligations, personal purchase history cannot be disclosed without the account holder's explicit authorization or a legally recognized form of consent, and offer to guide them on how the account holder can securely access or share their information. Option D. Inform the requesting member that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot provide any information about other members' accounts, regardless of the relationship. The correct answer is C. Politely explain to the requesting member that due to BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies and legal obligations, personal purchase history cannot be disclosed without the account holder's explicit authorization or a legally recognized form of consent, and offer to guide them on how the account holder can securely access or share their information. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate a situation where a customer's request potentially conflicts with established company policy, and more importantly, with regulatory requirements designed to protect sensitive customer information. The need for careful judgment stems from balancing customer service with the imperative of data privacy and security. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication with the customer, explaining the limitations imposed by BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies and relevant regulations. This approach is right because it upholds the company's commitment to protecting customer data, which is a fundamental ethical and legal obligation. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation often found in privacy regulations, ensuring that personal information is not disclosed without proper authorization or for unauthorized purposes. By offering alternative compliance solutions, the employee demonstrates good customer service while adhering to the law. An incorrect approach that involves fulfilling the customer's request without verification or proper authorization would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would violate data privacy laws by improperly disclosing personal information, potentially leading to identity theft or other harms to the customer. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the customer's request outright without explanation or offering alternatives, is also professionally unacceptable. While it avoids a privacy breach, it fails to meet customer service expectations and can damage the company's reputation. It also misses an opportunity to educate the customer on legitimate ways to access information, if applicable. A third incorrect approach, which is to guess or infer information to satisfy the customer, is equally problematic as it introduces inaccuracies and still risks unauthorized disclosure. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves first identifying the core issue, data privacy, then consulting relevant company policies and applicable regulations. If a request appears to conflict with these, the next step is to communicate clearly and respectfully with the requester, explaining the constraints and exploring compliant alternatives. Escalation to a supervisor or compliance officer should be considered if the situation is complex or if there is uncertainty about the correct course of action. Question 14. To address the challenge of a BJ's Wholesale Club member requesting access to another member's purchase history to verify a shared discount, which approach best aligns with regulatory compliance and company policy regarding customer data privacy? Option A. Attempt to find a workaround by looking up general sales data for the product in question to see if a discount was applied, without accessing specific member purchase histories. Option B. Access the requested member's purchase history and provide the relevant details to the inquiring member to facilitate the discount verification. Option C. Advise the inquiring member to contact the other member directly to obtain the necessary purchase information themselves. Option D. Politely explain to the member that due to privacy regulations and BJ's Wholesale Club's commitment to protecting member information, purchase history cannot be shared with other members, and offer to assist them with verifying their own discount eligibility. The correct answer is D. Politely explain to the member that due to privacy regulations and BJ's Wholesale Club's commitment to protecting member information, purchase history cannot be shared with other members, and offer to assist them with verifying their own discount eligibility. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate a situation where a customer's request potentially conflicts with company policy, and more importantly, with federal regulations regarding the handling of sensitive personal information. The core of the challenge lies in balancing customer service with the imperative to protect data privacy. A hasty or uninformed response could lead to a data breach, significant legal penalties for BJ's Wholesale Club, and damage to customer trust. Careful judgment is required to identify the appropriate course of action that upholds both customer satisfaction and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves recognizing the limitations imposed by data privacy laws and company policy, and then seeking guidance from the appropriate internal resource. This demonstrates an understanding that not all customer requests can be fulfilled directly, and that certain situations necessitate escalation. Specifically, when a customer asks for information that could be considered personally identifiable information, PI, or sensitive, an employee must adhere to the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, as mandated by regulations like the U.S. federal framework governing data privacy. The employee's responsibility is to protect customer data, not to disclose it without proper authorization or a legitimate business need. By referring the customer to the designated department or supervisor, the employee ensures that the request is handled by individuals trained in data privacy protocols and authorized to make decisions regarding information disclosure, thereby preventing potential violations of privacy laws and company policy. An incorrect approach would be to directly fulfill the customer's request without verification or understanding of the data's sensitivity. This action would represent a failure to uphold data privacy principles, potentially leading to unauthorized disclosure of PII, which is a direct violation of federal data protection laws. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer's request outright without offering any alternative or explanation. This demonstrates poor customer service and a lack of understanding of how to appropriately handle such inquiries, potentially alienating the customer and failing to address the underlying need, even if it cannot be met directly. Finally, attempting to interpret or guess the nature of the information requested and providing it based on assumptions is also an incorrect and dangerous approach, as it bypasses established protocols for data handling and increases the risk of accidental disclosure or misuse of sensitive information. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear, step-by-step evaluation. First, identify the nature of the customer's request and assess its potential sensitivity regarding personal information. Second, consult internal policies and procedures related to data handling and customer inquiries. Third, if the request involves potentially sensitive information or falls outside the employee's direct authority, escalate the matter to a supervisor or a designated department responsible for data privacy and customer relations. This systematic approach ensures that customer service is provided within the bounds of legal and ethical obligations. Question 15. The review process indicates that a member has been observed repeatedly approaching other members in the aisles of BJ's Wholesale Club, attempting to sell them personal items. This behavior is causing discomfort to some shoppers and is not in line with BJ's Wholesale Club's policy on solicitation. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for an associate to take? Option A. Engage the individual in a discussion about why their sales activity is bothering other members and attempt to persuade them to stop. Option B. Ignore the behavior to avoid confrontation and maintain a peaceful shopping environment. Option C. Politely inform the individual that solicitation is not permitted on BJ's Wholesale Club premises according to company policy and ask them to cease the activity. If they do not comply, inform them they will be asked to leave. Option D. Immediately call security to escort the individual out of the store. The correct answer is C. Politely inform the individual that solicitation is not permitted on BJ's Wholesale Club premises according to company policy and ask them to cease the activity. If they do not comply, inform them they will be asked to leave. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate a situation where a potential customer's behavior raises concerns about compliance with company policy and potentially legal statutes regarding solicitation. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need to maintain a safe and orderly shopping environment for all members with the right to refuse service or address disruptive behavior, all while adhering to BJ's internal guidelines and relevant U.S. federal and state laws. The employee must make a judgment call that is both effective in resolving the immediate issue and compliant with legal and ethical standards. The correct approach involves politely but firmly informing the individual that their activity is not permitted within BJ's Wholesale Club premises according to company policy, and if they do not cease, they will be asked to leave. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the violation of company policy regarding solicitation on private property. It is grounded in the legal right of a private business like BJ's Wholesale Club to establish and enforce rules for its premises, provided these rules do not discriminate unlawfully. This approach prioritizes de-escalation while clearly communicating the consequences of non-compliance, aligning with typical business practices for maintaining order and member experience. It respects the individual's right to be informed of the policy and given an opportunity to comply before further action is taken. An incorrect approach would be to immediately call security or law enforcement without first attempting to address the situation directly with the individual. This is an overreaction that could escalate the situation unnecessarily and may not be warranted if the individual is simply unaware of the policy. It bypasses the opportunity for a simple resolution and could lead to an unnecessary use of security resources. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the behavior and allow it to continue. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to uphold company policy and could negatively impact the experience of other BJ's members. It also sets a precedent that disruptive or unauthorized activities are tolerated, potentially leading to further issues. A third incorrect approach would be to engage in a lengthy debate or argument with the individual about the validity of the policy. This is unproductive and unprofessional. The employee's role is to enforce policy, not to justify it in a debate. Such an interaction can escalate tensions and detract from the primary responsibilities of serving other members and maintaining store operations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a tiered approach. First, assess the situation and identify the specific policy violation. Second, attempt a polite, direct, and clear communication of the policy and the expectation for compliance. Third, if compliance is not achieved, clearly state the consequences of continued noncompliance. Fourth, if the situation escalates or the individual refuses to comply, then involve appropriate internal resources such as management or security, or external authorities if legally mandated or necessary for safety. This process prioritizes de-escalation, policy enforcement, and the safety and experience of all members. Question 16. What factors determine whether an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club can ethically and legally assist a friend with a personal business venture by leveraging their position within the company? Option A. The strength of the personal friendship and the perceived low risk of the friend's business venture failing. Option B. Whether the friend offers to share a portion of their business profits with the employee in exchange for the assistance. Option C. Whether the assistance involves accessing or sharing non-public BJ's Wholesale Club information, or providing preferential treatment that violates company policy. Option D. The employee's personal belief that the assistance is harmless and will not negatively impact BJ's Wholesale Club's operations. The correct answer is C. Whether the assistance involves accessing or sharing non-public BJ's Wholesale Club information, or providing preferential treatment that violates company policy. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure adherence to company policies and relevant regulations concerning employee conduct and data privacy. The core challenge lies in balancing personal relationships with professional responsibilities and maintaining the integrity of BJ's operations and member data. The correct approach involves prioritizing BJ's Wholesale Club's established policies and ethical guidelines regarding employee conduct and data access. This means refraining from using insider information or privileged access to assist a friend in a way that could compromise the company's security, member privacy, or competitive advantage. Specifically, it requires the employee to decline the request if it involves accessing or sharing non-public information, or providing preferential treatment that violates company policy. This aligns with general principles of data protection and employee conduct expected in retail environments, ensuring that BJ's Wholesale Club upholds its commitment to member trust and operational integrity. An incorrect approach would be to fulfill the friend's request without considering the implications. This could involve accessing member purchase history to provide a competitive edge for the friend's personal venture, or sharing details about upcoming promotions or inventory that are not yet public. Such actions would violate the trust placed in the employee by BJ's Wholesale Club and its members, potentially leading to disciplinary action, reputational damage for the company, and breaches of privacy regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the request entirely without offering a polite refusal or explanation, which could strain professional relationships and fail to uphold the expected standards of customer service and ethical conduct. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core request and its potential implications. This involves consulting company policies on conflicts of interest, data privacy, and employee conduct. If the request appears to violate these policies or ethical standards, the professional should politely decline, explaining that they cannot fulfill the request due to company policy or professional obligations. If there is any ambiguity, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the HR department is crucial before taking any action. Question 17. The evaluation methodology shows that a customer approaches a BJ's Wholesale Club associate at the customer service desk and states they believe they have an account with BJ's but cannot recall their login details. They ask the associate to look up their account information to confirm their membership status and retrieve their contact details. What is the most appropriate response for the BJ's Wholesale Club associate to take in this situation? Option A. Ask the customer for their date of birth and a recent purchase history to try and locate their account, then provide them with their membership status and contact information. Option B. Confirm that an account exists for the customer and provide them with their membership number and the contact phone number associated with the account. Option C. Politely inform the customer that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot access or disclose account information without proper verification procedures, and suggest they visit the BJ's website or contact member services directly to initiate the account recovery process. Option D. State that BJ's Wholesale Club does not store customer account information and advise the customer to try and remember their details. The correct answer is C. Politely inform the customer that BJ's Wholesale Club cannot access or disclose account information without proper verification procedures, and suggest they visit the BJ's website or contact member services directly to initiate the account recovery process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee at BJ's Wholesale Club to navigate a situation where a customer's request potentially conflicts with company policy, and more importantly, with regulatory requirements concerning data privacy. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing customer service with legal obligations, ensuring that no sensitive information is inadvertently disclosed. The correct approach involves politely declining the request and explaining that BJ's Wholesale Club must adhere to privacy regulations, without confirming or denying the existence of the specific account. This upholds the principle of data minimization and prevents unauthorized disclosure of personal information. Regulatory justification stems from the need to comply with data protection laws, which mandate that personal data can only be disclosed to the individual it pertains to, or with their explicit consent. Ethically, it aligns with the duty to protect customer privacy. An incorrect approach would be to attempt to verify the customer's identity through informal means, or to provide any information about an account, even if the customer claims to be the account holder. This poses a significant regulatory failure because it bypasses established security protocols designed to prevent identity theft and unauthorized access to sensitive data. Ethically, it breaches the trust placed in BJ's Wholesale Club to safeguard customer information. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer's request without offering a clear, policy-based explanation, which would be poor customer service and could lead to misunderstandings about BJ's commitment to privacy. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves understanding company policies, recognizing potential privacy risks, and knowing how to respond to requests that could compromise sensitive data. When in doubt, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the compliance department is crucial. The process should always involve a clear, polite, and policy-driven communication that protects both the customer and the company. Question 18. Operational review demonstrates that a BJ's Wholesale Club member is attempting to return an item purchased over 90 days ago, which is outside the standard 90-day return window stipulated in BJ's return policy. The member is a long-time, loyal customer and is insistent on receiving a refund, citing a personal emergency. The associate is aware of the policy but feels pressured by the customer's emotional appeal and the potential for a negative online review. What is the most appropriate course of action for the BJ's associate to take in this situation, considering regulatory compliance and company policy? Option A. Immediately process the return for a full refund to appease the customer and avoid a negative review, overriding the standard policy. Option B. Suggest the customer dispute the charge with their credit card company, as BJ's cannot accept the return outside the policy. Option C. Refuse the return outright and inform the customer that the policy is absolute, without offering any further assistance or escalation. Option D. Politely explain the return policy and offer to explore if any alternative solutions or store credit options are available within the policy's flexibility or through management approval. Correct answer is D. Politely explain the return policy and offer to explore if any alternative solutions or store credit options are available within the policy's flexibility or through management approval. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to navigate a potential conflict between company policy and a customer's request, while also adhering to specific regulatory requirements for handling customer data and transactions. The need for careful judgment arises from balancing customer satisfaction with the imperative of regulatory compliance and internal operational integrity. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established company policy and regulatory guidelines for handling returns and exchanges, even when faced with a customer's insistence on an exception. This is because BJ's Wholesale Club, as a retail entity operating within the United States, is subject to various consumer protection laws and internal operational procedures designed to prevent fraud, ensure accurate inventory management, and maintain fair business practices. Adhering to the stated return policy, which likely includes specific timeframes and conditions for returns, is a direct application of these principles. It upholds the integrity of the company's operational processes and mitigates risks associated with unauthorized or fraudulent transactions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately grant the customer's request for an exception without proper authorization or adherence to policy. This failure to follow established procedures could lead to several regulatory and ethical issues. Firstly, it bypasses the internal controls designed to prevent potential fraud or abuse of the return system. Secondly, it could set a precedent for other customers to expect similar exceptions, undermining the fairness and consistency of the company's policies. Furthermore, if the return involves sensitive customer information or financial transactions, deviating from policy could inadvertently violate data privacy regulations or internal security protocols. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer's request outright without attempting to find a resolution within the established policy framework or escalating the issue appropriately. While policy adherence is crucial, a complete lack of empathy or willingness to explore options can lead to customer dissatisfaction and damage the company's reputation. However, the primary failure here is not necessarily a direct regulatory violation, but a lapse in customer service and potentially a missed opportunity to resolve the situation within the bounds of policy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of company policies and relevant regulations. When faced with a customer request that deviates from the norm, the employee should first consult the established policy. If the request falls outside the policy, the next step is to explore if there are any authorized exceptions or escalation procedures. This might involve seeking approval from a supervisor or manager who has the authority to grant exceptions based on specific criteria. The focus should always be on finding a solution that is compliant with both internal procedures and external regulations, while also striving for a positive customer experience where possible. Question 19. Operational review demonstrates that a BJ's Wholesale Club member is requesting specific details about past purchases made by another member, claiming they are authorized to access this information. The employee handling the request is unsure of the exact policy regarding shared account access and the level of detail that can be provided. Option A. Politely inform the member that such information cannot be shared due to privacy concerns, without exploring any potential policy-compliant avenues for verification or assistance. Option B. Attempt to recall similar situations and provide the member with the information based on general knowledge of BJ's Wholesale Club's operations. Option C. Directly provide the requested purchase details to the member, assuming their claim of authorization is valid to ensure a positive member experience. Option D. Consult BJ's Wholesale Club's internal policies on member data access and privacy, and if necessary, seek clarification from a supervisor before providing any information. The correct answer is D. Consult BJ's Wholesale Club's internal policies on member data access and privacy, and if necessary, seek clarification from a supervisor before providing any information. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to balance operational efficiency with adherence to BJ's Wholesale Club's internal policies and potentially broader regulatory guidelines concerning data privacy and customer service standards. The core of the challenge lies in determining the appropriate level of information sharing with a member without compromising privacy or violating established procedures. Careful judgment is required to avoid both oversharing, which could lead to privacy breaches or policy violations, and undersharing, which could result in a negative member experience and potential loss of business. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of BJ's Wholesale Club's established policies regarding member data access and disclosure, coupled with a commitment to providing excellent customer service within those boundaries. This approach prioritizes member privacy and data security, which are critical for maintaining trust and complying with any applicable consumer protection regulations. By consulting the relevant policy documents and seeking guidance from a supervisor when unsure, the employee demonstrates a commitment to regulatory compliance and ethical conduct, ensuring that member information is handled responsibly and that the member receives accurate assistance without unauthorized disclosure. An incorrect approach of directly providing the requested detailed purchase history without verification or authorization fails to uphold BJ's Wholesale Club's data privacy policies. This could lead to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive member information, potentially violating privacy laws and internal security protocols. Another incorrect approach of outright refusing to assist the member without exploring policy-compliant alternatives demonstrates poor customer service and a lack of problem-solving initiative. This can lead to member dissatisfaction and damage the club's reputation. Finally, an incorrect approach of guessing or fabricating information to satisfy the member is unethical and can lead to significant errors, misrepresentation, and a breach of trust, undermining the integrity of BJ's Wholesale Club's operations. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core request and the potential risks involved. They should then consult internal policies and procedures relevant to the request. If the policy is clear, they should follow it. If there is ambiguity or the request falls outside standard procedures, seeking guidance from a supervisor or designated compliance officer is the next crucial step. This ensures that decisions are made in alignment with company standards and regulatory requirements, fostering a culture of compliance and responsible data handling. Question 20. Benchmark analysis indicates that a member of BJ's Wholesale Club has submitted a request through the company's official website portal, asking for a complete record of all personal data collected about them and a list of third parties with whom their data has been shared. This request appears to be made under a consumer privacy law. Which of the following actions should a BJ's Wholesale Club associate take? Option A. Forward the request to the BJ's Wholesale Club privacy officer or legal department for review and guidance on fulfilling the request in accordance with applicable U.S. privacy laws and company policy. Option B. Immediately compile and send all requested data to the member, as the request is made through an official channel. Option C. Inform the member that BJ's Wholesale Club does not share personal data with any third parties and therefore cannot fulfill the request. Option D. Advise the member that such requests are not handled through the website portal and they must submit a formal written request via mail. The correct answer is B. Immediately compile and send all requested data to the member, as the request is made through an official channel. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to navigate potential conflicts between company policy and external legal requirements, specifically concerning data privacy and security. The core of the challenge lies in understanding the scope of BJ's Wholesale Club's obligations under relevant U.S. federal and state privacy laws, and how to respond to a request that may or may not align with those obligations. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance without overstepping boundaries or jeopardizing member trust. The correct approach involves a measured response that prioritizes adherence to BJ's Wholesale Club's established data privacy policies and relevant U.S. privacy regulations. This approach is right because it acknowledges the request while initiating a formal internal process to verify its legitimacy and ensure compliance with legal mandates. Specifically, it involves consulting with the designated privacy officer or legal department, who are equipped to interpret the nuances of laws like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, or similar state-level regulations, and to determine if the requested information falls within the scope of permissible disclosures or if specific consent is required. This ensures that BJ's Wholesale Club acts responsibly and legally, protecting both member data and the company from potential penalties. An incorrect approach that immediately provides the requested information without verification is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses essential security protocols and could lead to unauthorized disclosure of sensitive member data, violating privacy laws and company policy. This failure to consult internal experts or verify the request's validity exposes BJ's Wholesale Club to significant legal and reputational risks. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the request entirely, is also professionally unacceptable. While it might seem like a way to avoid potential missteps, it fails to address a member's legitimate inquiry or request, potentially violating consumer rights under privacy laws and damaging the member relationship. It also misses an opportunity to ensure the company is meeting its legal obligations. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about the request's validity without proper consultation is risky. Assumptions can lead to misinterpretations of legal requirements or company policy, resulting in either overdisclosure or undercompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, understand the request and its context. Second, consult internal policies and procedures related to data handling and privacy. Third, identify and engage the appropriate internal resources, e.g., privacy officer, legal counsel, to interpret legal obligations and company guidelines. Fourth, act based on the verified guidance received. And fifth, document the entire process for accountability and future reference.